Hi, I'm Loretta, and I'm really glad that you showed up today. Welcome to my sewing room. Good morning, fellow quilters. Today what we're going to do is piece the small stars and the small half stars that get set into this large Lemoyne star for the main block of the Star Up on Stars quilt. So what I'm going to show you today is the Deb Tucker method using the Rapid Fire Lemoyne Star ruler. And I've already pre-cut my fabric, and what I have here is a background and a darker fabric. I've chosen kind of a medium green floral, and I've cut these strips out of fat quarters. And what you need if you're using half widths of fabric, fat quarters, in order to make enough stars, small stars, to go through this whole block, you will need 6 strips that are half a fabric width, so 6 roughly 20-inch strips. If you have full yardage, that's 45 inches wide, 44 inches wide, you will need 3 strips of your 2 different colors. Now for these stars that go in the main block, they're kind of an odd size. They finish at 3.5 inches. So the Deb Tucker ruler and the instruction sheet that comes with it, they are going to give you instructions for 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, and so on. And so what you have to do is kind of adjust things so that you can have this 3.5-inch finished block. So what I've done for my strips is I've followed the instructions for cutting the strips at the 4-inch size. So I've cut the star strips at 1.5 inches and the background strips at 2 3/4. So that's how I've started this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sew these into strip sets, and you're going to offset when you sew these. So you're going to have three of each type of strip set, and this is basically how they're going to get laid out. They're going to be like this. You're going to have your background on the left and your star fabric on the right, and set B is going to be background fabric on the right and star fabric on the left. So these are going to get offset. So you're going to have an offset of just a fold of this background fabric. So fold that at 90 degrees, and then you'll just take this strip, lay it right side down. You can make a little mark there if you'd like, or just fold it and finger press it a little bit in the corner, and that'll give you a little press mark. This isn't an exact science here. You just want it roughly the same width as this strip is. You want to bring this down. And same thing over here. Just fold that down on itself, make a little crease in it, and this one gets sewn like this. So what you're going to end up is with is 3 like this and 3 like this. And so if you are starting with full widths of fabric, you should cut those in half, because you're going to need equal an equal number of these of strip A as you are of strip set B. So so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sew these up and at the machine, and all you're going to do is just use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew all the way down, and then we're going to press them. So I will come back then once I've gotten these strip sets sewn together. I'm not going to show you the sewing process. That's pretty simple. We're just going to use a standard 1/4 inch seam allowance and just sew this all the way down, and this one all the way down as well. So when we come back, I will have those ready to go, and we'll start some cutting, and I'll show you how to use this Deb Tucker ruler. Deb Tucker also has a video on YouTube of this process, and it's an excellent video, and so I'm going to refer you to that in the links in the description of this video, and then you can watch that as well. She does a very good detailed explanation of how to make these Lemoyne Star pieces. So when I come back, we'll have my strip sets sewn, and we'll get into some pressing and cutting. See you in a little bit. Okay, I have my strip sets sewn here, and I've used a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I also have them pressed. The pressing is important on these. I have my A strip sets and my B strip sets. All of the seams are pressed toward the left. So in the A strip sets, they're pressed toward the background fabric. In the B strips, they're pressed toward the star fabric. Now what you're going to do now is take one of each of these. You're going to put the B on the bottom with the star fabric facing towards you. The A is going to go on top, and you're going to nest that long seam together along this entire length. So just take your time to make sure that it's fully nested together. The raw edges should be aligned, pretty close anyway. And now the Deb Tucker ruler will come into play. So you're going to take the ruler, line up. You can use either the dotted seam line or the edge. I use the seam line. Line it up with the seam on your strip set. Take a second ruler and butt it up against this one. And now you can trim away the excess. What that gives you is a 45-degree angle. And from this, you're going to cut 1.5 inch sets. So line up my 1.5 inch ruler mark, trim it, and then you're going to trim this point off. And you're going to trim it off to where it's even with the point. Make sure I'm in the camera view. You're going to make sure that it's even here. So I'm taking a line on my ruler, lining it up there, moving it over so that I'm aligned with this, the tip of that seam allowance. And I'm just going to trim off that triangle. So now you're left with two shapes here, and you're going to have just two piles, one like this, one like this. These are mirror images of each other right here. So I'm going to continue cutting these. As you're cutting these, just make sure that you continue to make sure that your 45-degree is accurate. That's one of the important steps in this quilt block. So I'm going to continue cutting these pieces, and then we'll get to the point where we're starting to sew things together. Cut my 1.5 inch strip. And trim off those triangles. And stack them up. So we'll be back in just a little bit. I'll have these cut, and then we'll do some more sewing. Okay, this is just part of my pile of all these pieces that have been cut. So now you're going to separate them. Oops, that one's not a good one. So now you're going to separate them, and you're going to separate them into the right and left hand pieces. Okay, so now those are separated. We also have this little pile of triangles, and those are going to get sewn on to the short side of these other units. So let's do it with one here. So we're going to sew them on like this, and you don't have to worry too much about matching everything up. Just kind of center this triangle along the short edge and stitch them together. And once I've got that done, I'll come back and show you how to trim these, how to press them and to trim them. So again, 1/4 inch seam, just sew a triangle to the short side of each of these other pieces that have the 2 fabrics in them. So when that's done, I'll be back and show you how to trim these up, and then we'll continue on after that. Okay, I have just a few of these units ready to trim, and so you have your right hand units and your left hand units, and all the seams are going to be pressed to the left. So in the right hand unit, the seam's going to be pressed toward this strip pieced unit, and on the left hand one it's going to be pressed toward that triangle. So now we're going to trim these, and now you'll be using the Rapid Fire Lemoyne Star ruler, and hopefully you can see this well enough. I've used the Omnigrid backing on the back of this ruler, and on that vinyl backing I have used just a fine ballpoint pen and marked a new line between the 3-inch line and the 4-inch line, and that's what I'm going to use to trim up these units. So I have the star fabric kind of pointing at about 2 o'clock. I have my line on my ruler lined up with the seam, and I'm going to now trim the excess away. And there is quite a bit, because I've cut these to be a 4-inch finished block, and I'm only going to be having a 3-inch finished block. So that is how the left hand unit looks when it's trimmed. I'll trim one of these right hand units as well. Just lining up that line I've drawn with the edges of this star fabric. Trim both sides, and that's how they look. Now these are going to go together like this for the full stars, and there will be 4 identical squares, and then for the half stars they're going to get pieced together along the short side like that, and 2 of those units will make a half a star. So I'm going to finish trimming these, and then we'll be back with the next part of this. Okay, so now I have all of my units trimmed, and what I've done is I've pulled out 8 of the left hand units and 8 of the right hand units. Those will be used to piece the half stars. So the next step in this process is we're going to start piecing these together. So for the half stars, you're going to piece these together on the short sides. These seams will nest, and what that'll give you is 8 of these units. And then once you have 8 of those, you'll piece them together like this, and you'll have 4 half stars. So again, I'm going to keep my piles separate, keep them in order. And so those will get pieced with the short sides together. And then these others, they will get pieced into squares by joining the long sides together. And again, all of these seams will nest. And when you sew these together, you're going to sew by matching up the point of the star fabric and nesting those seams. Don't worry about what's going on down here in the background fabric. These are still oversized at this point, except for this star point. Those have been cut to exactly the correct size. And same with these. You'll piece them together, short sides together, right sides together. Line up the point on the star fabric, nest those seams. Don't worry about what's going on down here. This will get trimmed later to be correct. So I'm going to go sew all of those units together, and we'll be back and show you the next step. Okay, so now I've sewn these pieces together. These are the ones that were sewn on the short side for the half stars. Now from this point on, I'm going to press all of my seams open. Now what I'm going to do here then is press these open, and I'm going to trim the little dog ears off. And be careful though, these still have bias edges. This edge is bias and this edge is bias. So be careful when you're pressing that you don't stretch that out. These units are now a square instead of a triangle. And I'm also going to press these open and trim those dog ears off. These no longer have any exposed bias. Everything on the edge of this unit is now straight of grain. So I'm going to get those pressed, trim the dog ears only on the star points. I'm not going to worry about these up here because this is going to get trimmed off later. These are still oversized. You can see that you have way more than a 1/4 inch on the tip of the star point. So again, we're still oversized. These are going to get trimmed down, but now I'm going to just get all these pressed open and get those dog ears trimmed off, and then I will show you the next step. Alright, so now I have pressed these seams open on both of these units, and I've trimmed off all the little ears, and now these triangles are going to get pieced like this into 4 half star units. And once that's done, we're finished with that pile. And now here, these are going to get pieced 4 squares together, 4 patch fashion, and that will make 4 of the full small stars. So I am going to get that piecing done. Again, 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like we've done all the way through. And these seams are all going to get pressed open as well. Just remember on these units, you are going to continue to have bias. This will be bias on the outside edge of the finished 12-inch block. These square stars no longer have any bias to deal with here. So I'm going to piece these together, press those seams open, piece these together, press those seams open, again here, press those seams open as well, and then I'll join these into the full star blocks, again pressing all of those seams open. Once all of that sewing and pressing is done, I'll come back and show you how to trim these down into the final units. So, be back in just a little bit. Okay. Okay, I have finished that sewing, and I've pressed the seam open on all of these, and now I'm going to show you how to trim these. So this here is the half star. I'll trim those up first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to trim this bias edge up a little bit. So I've just picked a line on my ruler. I'm lining it up with this seam line that goes from here, the center, all the way out to the corner here. And I'm not going to actually, I don't want to trim any seam allowance off. I still want to have my 1/4 inch seam allowance there. But I'm just going to trim off any little tiny bit of excess that might be there. And now I'm going to trim this up to its finished size. So what I'm going to do, I've got a small square ruler here. It's a 6.5 inch square. It's the Olfa QR6S. I've had this for quite a while. But I am going to line up the 2 inch line going this direction with this seam, which goes right through the center of this triangle and down where those two star points meet. I have another 2 inch line over here, lining that up, and then the diagonal line will line right up along that seam as well. So now I have this ready to trim, and I'm gonna just trim off those two sides. Now for the half stars, that's all the trimming you need to do. So there's going to be 4 of those total. And now I have 4 of these full stars. Again, I'm going to use the 2 inch line this direction and the 2 inch line this direction. Those are going to line up with those seams. This diagonal line is going to go right through the center on the diagonal. Start with trimming these 2 sides. Flip it around. I missed that ear there. And now I'll trim the final 2 sides. I'm going to use the 4 inch line now. This needs to be 4 inches. But I'm also going to double check and make sure that the 2 inch line is lined up with that seam, this 2 inch line is lined up with that seam, and the diagonal line is lined up with the diagonal seam. So that looks good. I'm going to trim the final 2 sides, and that is the finished full small star. So you're going to have 4 of these and 4 of these. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to set these in to the star that we made in the last 2 videos. So this one is going to fit in like that, this one like that, and then this will now make a finished 12 inch block. So I'm going to trim all those up, and then next time we'll be back and we'll set these small stars into this large star. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you find this information helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.